Hey everyone, welcome to our weekly American Mussar community gathering. This week we will begin exploring the soul trait of gratitude. So, as I said in the email I sent out earlier today, it feels like I've written this post more than once. How to practice gratitude in difficult times, how to do this in difficult times, because we've had a lot of difficult times in the last few years. Um, but we are all here today. We have taken some time out of our busy schedules to be together and to cultivate our inner world. So we'll begin, as we always do, with a short meditation. So please relax in your seat and close your eyes. Maybe rock back and forth a little bit to get comfortable. And take in a deep breath through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And again, inhale through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And if thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and let them pass, like watching a car move past on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema. And on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. And Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. In Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. When you're ready, you may open your eyes. Hi, Joanne. Hi, Janet. Hi, Stephanie. Welcome. So to get started today, oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. I have to figure out which is the right slide for today. Okay. Would someone care to unmute and read this poem by Marcia Falk?
Sleep descending on my lids, on my limbs, I call to mind the gifts of the day, the gift of this day, and give thanks. Marcia Falk.
Thank you. So what are some things you notice about this poem? Which is an open question.
For me, the first word, sleep.
Mm,
I am grateful for sleep.
yes, sleep is wonderful.
Yeah.
What else? Yeah, Sue, you remember to unmute, please?
Oh, sorry. Um, I love the lids on my limbs. That's so unique. And thinking about your whole body, right? Your lids and my
Mm.
limbs. So it starts kind of like here and goes down
Ah,
to
yes.
all of the limbs. And that kind of calms me down thinking about that for some reason. You know, sleep and then lids and limbs. And then you go right to the gifts and the gifts of the day and give thanks. So I think it's beautiful.
It is. It is. Thank you, Sue. Joanne.
Yeah, I just think what a nice way to end the day, giving thanks
Mm,
for what happened, of the day, and just having the day.
yes.
I think that's
Yeah, I
beautiful.
love that as you point out that, we have many gifts that happen during the day. And oh, by the way, just having another day is a gift.
Mhm.
Is a gift for sure. Any other thoughts?
Well, I like the dashes because
Mm,
what I do after a dash is I usually fill in something,
mm.
so maybe I'll actually use my words to express what the gifts of the day were, and then the gift of this day, just having this day. So I like the dashes that she uses.
I did not notice that, but I love that. Yeah, and what I'm hearing you point out is that it's inviting. It
Mhm.
invites us. Yeah, what were the gifts I got today? And oh yeah, today is another day. Okay, so let's take this a little deeper. And may I have another volunteer to read our definition of gratitude?
Musar teaches that the gratitude soul trait governs our ability to recognize the good in any situation. In fact, the Hebrew word for this soul trait literally translate as recognizing the good. I continue.
Yeah.
It is easy to get caught up in a litany of woe, listing all the injustices the universe has visited upon us. We lose sight of the fact that life itself is a gift. In fact, the terminally ill can seem to be more alive, filled with joy that they have survived to see another day. Musar teaches us how to gain this appreciation while we remain alive and healthy. In the Talmud, Ben Zoma teaches who is rich? One who is happy with their lot.
Thank you, Joanne.
Spiritual practice, good actions, page 138. You're welcome.
Thank you. So I'm gonna leave this up just because there's a lot kind of here. And again, I can't see many of you, but what is something, so what in these various definitions of gratitude speak to you? Or don't speak to you and seem a little objectionable?
Mhm.
Well, it's not really objectionable to recognize the good in any situation. I think it's just it is a little more complicated and complex than than the sentence itself would lead you to believe. Sometimes something happens, and I force myself to see the good in it. For instance, they have just the government has just taken $30 million away from the security grant for the nonprofit that our temple is going to apply for. So I had to really actually search, and so I'm thinking to recognize and search for the good in any situation.
That's
Yeah, before I think that's a great point, and I have something I want to add to that as well. But before that, I just want to welcome Beth. I see you've joined us. Thank you for coming today. Welcome. Yeah, I have to say, when I was looking at this earlier, I was like, I don't know if I would write that the same way. I mean, because there are some situations where, and I even wrote about that today in the blog post, it's like sometimes it's not the right time to look for the good, or, you know, um, sometimes, tragic deaths, maybe there'll be something that comes out of it down the road, or a foundation, or people try to make meaning from it. But that's tough to kind of get to that point. But nonetheless, so yes, okay. I see we have Paul and Bonnie.
Yeah, I think that for me, it's very difficult, as you were saying, when I first got laid off in June, I was not grateful for that by any means. I kept telling myself something good would come of it, but it was a very dark month or 6 weeks or so before I started to come out from it. And so it's really, and thankfully, Carrie was very supportive and didn't tell me, listen, just be grateful, what is wrong with you? Yeah, she didn't say that, and nobody else told me that either. They just knew that it's a tough thing for anybody to lose. It's a big loss right there, because it was basically losing my work life at that point. That's what I was afraid of, and that's what happened. So yeah, I think that it will come in time, and over time. I think for me, it's also not taking the things that happen in my life personally. Like it's not God making my life miserable, or my higher power deciding, oh well, how about this? How will you deal with this and all that. So it's just that I don't understand the bigger picture, and I just need to. This is what I tell myself. I just need to relax and allow myself to find my way through it. I will make my way through it. Not sure how it's going to happen, but it's a very muddy process sometimes. It's not at all clear.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Bonnie.
So I agree a lot with Paul. And for me, having a difficult situation, and in that difficult situation, really working on finding what piece of good comes out of it. What can I be grateful for? And like Paul, I struggle, but I know it's in there. And it has helped me get through some really difficult situations, knowing that there's still something in there and I just need to find it.
Yeah.
And what have I learned at least from it that I hope I won't do again?
Yeah.
That is a big piece for me.
Thank you, Bonnie. Wendy.
So when Paul was talking, like Bonnie, I agree too, but I was seeing how he combined the soul trait of patience while going through that darkness. So we have our other soul traits to fall back on, which is kind of good, because otherwise we sort of just were grappling with how do we find good? But yeah, sometimes it's just breathing and waiting, and also when I found the good in the thing, other people, that's not a good thing for them. So it, sometimes it could be good for one person and not for another, and that's hard. It's hard to.
Yeah.
And then silence is good to use. You don't want to be saying, "Oh, that's good for us and not for you." Those traits are just great.
Yeah, no, well said. And we can bring sort of multiple together to kind of address these situations. So which for sure helps. Sue.
I was just thinking that recognizing the good, sometimes getting out of myself or my problems, if I'm struggling with something and I go outside, always helps me. Or like today, it was really cold in Minnesota. Like it got, it felt cold. But then I'm driving along and there's the sun. And I'm telling you, it was glorious. And all day long there was light. And I was so appreciative and grateful for the sun. And it kind of, when I focused on that and not my own problems. It kind of got me out of a funk. So, I mean, I think sometimes there's these little things, sometimes it's being in nature or something small and can kind of get you out of where you are in your head.
Yeah, absolutely. I've, as many of you know, I'm writing my thesis, ordination May 27th, so very excited about that. But this thesis, it's just a huge amount of work, and I'm getting, I got all this feedback from like various advisors and readers, and I'm like, and I'll get you some more at this date. And it's like, well, you're gonna give me the feedback on the due date. So how am I gonna? And then I was really kind of getting very sort of down and negative about the whole thing. And then so I started reading the gratitude chapter again and thinking about it. I'm like, well, boy, it is so nice to have these faculty who care enough to take the time to give me detailed feedback, and they are trying to kind of help me write the best thesis and help me polish these ideas and fill in gaps and holes. And these are really brilliant people, and they're helping me out. So that shift into gratitude got me out of the weeds of how do I, incorporate all these like changes. And if any of you are writers or have done writing projects, the end is not a fun time of any writing project. It really isn't. It's so I like to say someone was writing a book and they're like, wow, this is more work than I thought it was. And I said, well, when you get to the point where you want to become a chain smoker, then you'll know you're almost done. And I kind of hit that point this week where I'm just like, okay, so, I have gum instead. I don't smoke, thankfully. But yeah, so it really, gratitude, it's not always easy. And I think a number of you have said how much work it can be to do this kind of practice, but it can also be very rewarding. Yeah, Shelley, I had a feeling you were getting ready to comment. I could see you were kind of getting ready, so please.
I'm always somebody that I like to listen first because you get the feel of the room and where people are. Sorry, I'm in a stairwell right now, so I'm echoing. But I'm at work.
I thought you were speaking with divine authority. So.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go. Thank you, universe. So I have a couple of things when it comes to gratitude. Last year I watched a show, I think it was on Prime, and it was called GEM, and it was an acronym for gratitude, empathy, and mindfulness. And, most of us, when it comes to gratitude, we go, oh yeah, I'm going to do a journal. I'm going to every day write down what I'm grateful for. And we start off with grateful for my kids, grateful for this. And then by end of the week, we're like, oh, I got nothing to write. And so this guy came up with a great idea to, instead of writing what you're grateful for, write down the 3 things that went well for you in the day, which is also gratitude, but it's a way of looking at the small things. And so I started asking that to my kids every day. It drives them nuts, but I love it. And now they ask me, what's the 3 things that went well for you, mother? Right? And I'm like, well, and I'm somebody that I'm practicing taking the negative out of my life and in any situation and finding the positive, because there is always something that you can grapple onto. It doesn't have to be a massive thing. Yes, unfortunately you lost your occupation, but then I think to myself, well, you're not dying. You don't have cancer. You don't have this. So, it's those other things that you can grapple onto that makes you all of a sudden feel better. And like Sue was saying, going for a walk in the woods sometimes, just hearing the breeze and the trees just helps you to get into that peacefulness. And really, that is what life is to be at peace and to live with ease. And, I find now that I don't say things are happening to me. I say things are happening through me, because what I'm able to do is when somebody's in their negative mode, I don't take it personally. I don't react anymore. I actually look at them and try and understand where they're coming from and why do they feel this requirement. And the other thing that to be mindful is to really be conscientious of your words and what we say. A lot of times my clients will say, well, I can't do this, I can't do that. And then I had a client that said that the other day, and then she stopped herself and she said, actually, I can do that. And I said, you know, I am so glad that you turned that around. I said, because we all have the capabilities to do anything that we want. I said, or believe. I said, and that's the same thing with negativity. So that's my little blurb. Be positive, guys.
Thank you, Shelley. And you said so many great things. And one thing I want to highlight and lift up is you were saying, you know, recognizing the good things, or what are the good things that happen. That goes back to kind of our definition in Hebrew. Gratitude is hakarat hatov, which means recognizing the good. So if something really crappy happens, you know, sometimes it can be trying to find something good about that crappy thing, or it might just be, all right, well, let's put that over here, but at least it's a sunny day and I can and that's a good. That's a good. Like I caught, like at one point I got really sick when we were in Hawaii, and I'm like, well, at least I'm in Hawaii, you know, rather be sick in Hawaii than sitting, you know, some cold, rainy place right now. So yeah, thank you. Toby.
Sometimes a situation is so devastating, if you lose someone, or if you have a diagnosis that you weren't expecting, or well, any number of things, and there's a shock first, sort of a period of time, at least for me, when I have to work through it in my mind. I have to work through. Immediately, I am not able to find anything that's worth anything at that moment when you get that diagnosis or lose somebody or something. And for me, it takes a period of time for me to actually work through looking at what actually happened. That initial shock factor dissipates after a while. And then it's easier to say, but it's a sunny day, or but I have a kitten in my arms, or but whatever. But for me, I know it's that if somebody came up to me after I lost a loved one and say, oh, it's for the best, you know, or whatever, one of those things, I would want to punch him in the mouth. And I know that's a horrible thing to say, but it's a very individual, and for some people that may be very comforting. It is not for me. And sometimes you just need to work through it however you need to work through it. And if that means sitting in a dark room for a day or 5 days or whatever, or going away, it gives you a perspective from which to apprehend the good.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are so many awful platitudes that people sometimes say around the loss or an illness, which are just not helpful and not appropriate. And yeah, like I was leading a Musar group, and we were talking about gratitude, and there was yeah, there's just things that come up which are just not appropriate. This is a good place, I think, to segue into our spectrum of gratitude. So as a reminder, you know, for all of these soul traits, having too much of a trait can be just as bad as having too little. So at the top here, we see, here's our mantra, recognize the good and give thanks. If we have too little gratitude, it can lead to feeling down, depressed, you know, cynical about your thesis, not fun or healthy feelings. But too much gratitude is also not good. It can lead to complacence. It can lead to kind of some of the, you know, the toxic gratitude examples that you were just talking about, Toby, where, you know, it's not, sometimes really awful things happen. We need to process them. And that can and should and needs to take all of our attention. Yeah, Marjorie.
you know, I'm reading this, recognize the good and give thanks. So for me, it's not necessarily, there are going to be negative things that are going to happen. And I have the right to bemoan those however I do.
Mhm.
But it's also when something good does happen, it's like really hold that up, you know, because I can't diminish things that are not happy, that aren't great. And I shouldn't have to, because you've got to process that also.
Absolutely.
But really, really, I try to constantly look for the good and appreciate my blessings all the time.
Yeah.
You know, that is
Thank you,
all.
Marjorie.
Yeah.
So, again, in the email today, I talked about some of the things that can cause us to be. I saw your hand pop up for a second, Bonnie. Let me just talk about this and then we can get to you. Uh, in terms of like my thesis stuff, I just got preoccupied by the bad things. Now, these are bad with a small b. These are not like life tragedies or traumas or anything, but it's a lot of work. And I just got too caught up in that. But some of the other things that can come up is, we can become too absorbed in the worldly, or we can ignore the familiar and take it for granted, again, like the sunny day. So I'm going to stop the share and then we'll hear from Bonnie and then Wendy.
So I'm in the process of trying to get flights to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and from there to New York to go to Wisconsin's Hill Ellis celebrating 100 years. And the week after that is a high school reunion. And I'm frustrated because it just doesn't seem to be, you come from the West Coast, it's not so easy. And I have to realize when I'm dealing with something like this, that it's a first world problem. And that exactly, Sue, then I laugh.
Yeah.
Okay. I have to stop bitching. It's enough.
Hmm.
I can, it may take a lot of maneuvering. Thank you for Southwest. But it is a first world problem and it puts things into much more perspective.
Yeah. Thank you, Bonnie. Perspective is a great word. Wendy.
That's a nice way to put it, Bonnie. Actually, I tried to raise my hand when the spectrum was up. You guys know how I love the spectrum. I was thinking in Shakespeare, there's a court jester, and I'm thinking we have clowns in our lives nowadays, and I'm thinking that jester is a spectrum keeper for the king, because if the king, who everybody relies on, goes into a depression or then goes the other way, then it's kind of like hurts everybody. So I'm thinking something about finding the good, not to be funny, but balanced. A court jester's there to keep the king balanced. I don't know why I thought of that, but okay, sorry.
Oh, the court jester is a fascinating kind of institution and literature, and I don't know what they were like in real life, but certainly I have the literature view of them, and yeah, it's a powerful role. So I'm gonna yeah, Sue.
Well, I couldn't help after the court jester because I'm an actual clown. I'm a mitzvah clown. And people talk about me as bringing the joy. And one thing I wanted to say was when I take the 7th graders and the adults to Shalom Home to bring joy, we get even more joy.
Yeah, you do that with them.
So, I mean, it's just when you're joyous, when you bring joy, I feel that you get tons of joy back. So.
Thank you.
What is Shalom Home, Sue?
Shalom Home is our resident it's a nursing home in Minnesota. There's a Shalom Home East and a Shalom Home West from Minneapolis and St. Paul. And basically it has many different levels of care, actually. And we've gone in, I've done it for 12 years. We've gone into the highest level where people we come in and then they pass after we're there. So it's a very But we sing and we bring balloon animals, and the songs really, that's what really penetrates them. I mean, people respond to this, to singing in those later stages especially. So that's what that is.
Fantastic. Well, we've been talking about recognizing the good. I quickly covered this. We take things for granted. And I'm going to put this reading in the chat so we don't have to do another share. Does anyone have a good computer screen that wants to kind of read what's in the chat? You know, some people might be on a phone or something and it might be a little harder to see, so I'm also happy to read it.
I can read.
Okay.
Emphasizing goodness should be a daily exercise for us as we catch our children being good at small things, sharing a cookie with a friend, helping a younger sibling with a math problem. It is the expectation of good behavior and the rewarding of it in its minor forms that accumulate and turn our children into good people. Madeline Levine, teach your children well. And then how do we catch ourselves doing good things or experiencing good things?
Right. Thank you, Marjorie. So yeah, so one, really good piece of parenting advice is to try to catch your kids doing good stuff, which when I was, my kids were younger, it certainly was helpful to sort of read that because it's so easy to get caught up in the, you didn't clear your plate, and then, maybe all of a sudden one day it does get cleared and you got to make sure that you compliment that. But I think there's a lesson that we can sort of parent ourselves, so to speak. How do we catch ourselves doing good things or seeing good things? Any thoughts about how to go about that? Yeah, Wendy.
Sure. You can look at other people's reactions to what you've done. I mean, if you're with them, it's are they smiling? Are they laughing? Or are they their eyes following you? Are they having one of those moments? I like to see people laughing at me.
Yeah, thank you. Love that. Joanne.
Well, one of those things that I agree with Wendy is actually keeping my sense of humor, because I seem to get too serious a lot of the times, and then I don't know if someone's teasing or joking. And so I'm trying to be more aware of that, because certain people are, and like my friend Stephen is always saying, smile, and we have this whole thing. And actually, he's been someone who's, like, I've had a lot of interactions, and he's also put me on redirected me to the right path. Let's put it that way. Even though he's no scholar or anything, it's just he understands. He understands me, I guess, and that's a wonderful thing.
That's such a gift to have someone who understands you. And sometimes people understand this. There's the ones that can kind of poke us a little bit, they'll be like, hey, lighten up. Other thoughts? All right, well, now we're coming to sort of what I know is many people's favorite part, which is our breakout groups. And we have a little bit of a longer reading than we often do. But I think there's an interesting point here. So volunteer to read. Maybe even someone we haven't heard from yet today.
I'll read.
Okay.
A good guest says, see how much this host has troubled himself for my sake. He put so much meat in front of me, so much wine, so much bread. All this effort was for me. A bad guest says, what trouble did this host take for me? I ate just one roll, just one piece of meat. I drank just one cup of wine. All of this effort was for his own household. Ben Zoma. Do you want me to go on?
Yeah.
The two guests are framing the same situation differently based on how much they are judging versus honoring the host.
So let me pause you there. So I'm capitalizing honoring to remind us of the soul trait of honor, which we were exploring recently. So honoring is kind of recognizing the divine spark, or the giving people the benefit of the doubt, and judging is kind of is when we're on the low side of honor, where we're kind of looking at things to the negative side instead of the positive. Okay, so please go on, Bonnie.
Is there a situation in your life that you could reframe? Could you become more grateful and less resentful?
Okay. So
Hmm.
that's kind of where we are for our breakouts. We'll go into groups of 2 or 3, and for those of you on the newer side, we'll put you with a couple of people. So first, I'm going to put this in the chat. When we're in the breakout groups, we're really there just to listen, not to offer advice or be judgmental. It's just about kind of giving people a chance to be heard and be seen. Let's see, breakout rooms. Okay. Okay, so the rooms are open. So just click on join room. And I will see you in a few minutes. Hey there, welcome back. So I was thinking about this question about reframing. I realized that the story I told about the thesis and the feedback I was getting, that was a reframing. Like, they were not giving me feedback to make my life miserable. They were giving me feedback because they cared and wanted to be helpful. So would anyone care to kind of share something? Please share only what you talked about, not a story from someone else. And of course, I know sometimes these discussions stray pretty far from the prompt, which is fine. So yeah, we'd love to. We have some time. So what came up?
Well, I'll always talk.
Sure. Joanne, okay.
So, I mean, I guess I was talking about, where I am and with my treatment, and I'm hoping that expecting that my next appointment with my oncologist is going to be the last set of tests and meeting me with the oncologist for a while. Like, I don't know if it's going to be 6 months or 9 months or a year, whatever. And I still have a port, which was very helpful with chemotherapy. And we were discussing, like taking the port out as an important milestone in knowing you're recovered, and and being very grateful for that. And yep, I guess that's it.
Well, I hope that goes well, Joanne, and
Thank you.
I know we've all been sending you healing prayers and trying to support you as best we could through this whole
Well, I think everything helped because the outcome was great.
Yep.
Fantastic. Other thoughts? Yes, Wendy.
Well, I was just wondering what Bonnie has to share. I'm always curious when somebody shows something and I want to know what.
Oh, Greg, do you want me to read it now?
We'll give people a couple more minutes to comment, but then we definitely want to hear it. I was thinking we might do that leading into our closing meditation. So first, looks like Paul has something, and then Sue.
Yeah, I really love the for me, reframe situations is always giving me
Well, we're getting a
insights.
little bit of an echo from your
From
sound.
Everybody muted?
yeah, make sure everybody's muted, I guess.
Okay, we'll keep going.
Okay, so anyway, whether it's interactions at work, personal interactions with Gary or with anybody else, it's very embarrassing sometimes to come away and realize that I totally misread what I was saying. There was not criticism involved. Simply, I was expecting a negative response in some ways, and I interpreted it that way. So being able to learn about how I can reframe a relationship, reframe a situation, helps me go forward and improve how I interact with my world. So that was something very important for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Sue.
So many of you may know this, but I learned about Janet's book, Love Atop a Keyboard. And I didn't know about this, so that was exciting. And that she has great examples of how something that could be devastating, later on, you see the good in it. And so I was talking about if you have patience and perseverance in the long run, then sometimes, not always, but there's good, that things happen for a reason, but you don't always know it at the moment, and that you see the good, but later on.
Thank you.
On that note, I will put my email address in the chat because I don't want to talk about my book right now. Is that okay if I put the email address?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, does anyone else have anything they'd like to share, or should we move on to this reading from that Bonnie brought today? Okay, Bonnie, you're on.
This came from Psalm 27 book that we worked on before the Chagim last August. And I use it. I found it so meaningful that I copied it over, and it's part of my tefillah every night before I go to bed. To every challenging situation, thank you, Adonai, for courage. After every difficult conversation, thank you, Adonai, for patience. Every disappointment, thank you for hope. For every physical discomfort, thank you, Adonai, for strength. At each accomplishment, small and large, thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Wonderful.
Huh.
Of course, when all of these readings, when it says give thanks, the implication is giving thanks to the divine. And we all may have different thoughts about what that means. Maybe it's giving thanks to the universe, maybe to Hashem, maybe to Adonai or God, whatever that means to you.
Bunny, you're going to share that with us?
I will send it off to Greg. I've sent it to my kids and my friends. So I know it's on my camera's reel, so I will send it off to Greg, and he can send it out maybe next week with his email.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, Bonnie. All right, well, let's all once again relax in our seats and close our eyes. And take in a nice leisurely deep breath. A nice leisurely exhale. And tilt your head back and let your jaw open a little bit and smile.
Mhm.
Allow just a sense of gratitude and joy and contentment to settle in. This hour away from the rest of life and the rest of the world. Just being on a journey with other people. Looking to see the good in the world and the good in themselves. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes.